Hey guys, before we get into this video, I want to warn you that there's a couple of clips that have some buzzing in the audio. I discovered this only after I finished shooting the whole thing, and I did everything I could to fix it. I even considered just completely redubbing the voices, but then we would have lost the ambient audio, and I thought that wasn't worth it. So I hope it's not too annoying. I know it's a little bit annoying. It's not the whole thing, it's just a little bit. Sorry, and I hope that the video is still really valuable to you, even though there's a little bit of buzzing in some of the audio. Enjoy. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and I've got some backpacks to review. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and today I've got 4 FPV backpacks that I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you the pros and the cons of each one, and maybe even tell you which one I like the best. Although, as always, I'm going to try and give you enough information to decide for yourself which one you think is the best. I've also got a cheap bastard option, because I'm a cheap bastard, and some of you are also cheap bastards, or maybe you just don't have $150 or $200 to spend on a freaking backpack to carry your drones around. I get it. So without further ado, let's take a look at the backpacks that I've got in this roundup. This is the ThinkTank FPV Session backpack. It is a day pack styled backpack. It's available from ThinkTank, and it runs about $150. This is the ThinkTank FPV Airport Helipack. It is designed as a carry-on for airlines. It has a little bit more space than the FPV Session. It's a little bit bulkier as well, and it runs around $200. This is the Lowepro QuadGuard BP X1. It is a backpack style. It's a little bit smaller than the BP X2, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and it runs about $120. And this is the Lowepro QuadGuard BP X2, a little bigger than the BP X1, and it runs about $150. And this is the cheap bastard option. This particular one is a McGuire Nicholas tool bag. I got it from the hardware store. They run about $40 or $50, and they open top like so. They've got a thick wire here around the edge to hold it open. And I've used these in my life as quadcopter bags. I've used them as gun bags. I kind of don't love them as tool bags. I prefer a metal tool case for a lot of situations, but I've even used them as tool bags. They're fantastic. They're rigid bottom. You can put all kinds of stuff in here. They have pockets at the sides. So, for example, you can stuff props in there. You can put your transmitter, put a couple quads, batteries, everything, stuff on the outside. And if you are a cheap bastard and you just want a really, really effective way to carry your gear to the flight field, this is what I would recommend. But if you are a cool kid who likes to wear hoodies and leather jackets and go to car parks and rip balls, then you need a fancy schmancy expensive backpack, clearly. Let's take a look. So now let's take this part and see how it goes on the inside. I do want to show you, if I'm bringing a ground station like my Clearview, then I would typically stuff the Clearview in one side and the tripod in the other side, but I'm not doing that for this trip, so we'll set that aside. Here we go. Take the copters off, and let's open it up. It's got double zipper here, so you can zip it down either side. I did figure out why this opens from both sides. If you're just reaching in from the top of the backpack, you'd open this one, but if you've got this hanging open, you'd open it from this side so stuff doesn't fall out. Very clever. So in there I've got some tape, some spare antennas, little spare arms and bottom plate for the copter, just little misc odds and ends there. I like to put the batteries in this bottom compartment here because it's a little bit, it's roomier at the bottom than it is at the top. So you can kind of stuff all the batteries down in there and they fill it up and you can kind of reach in and pull them out as you need to. I wasn't able to get all my batteries in here. I was only able to get like 20. I think that's more than most people are going to need. And if I'm actually taking fewer batteries, I like to neatly kind of stack them in there and pull them out one at a time. But you can see I've kind of just jammed this as full of batteries as it'll freaking go. And that's where I've got the batteries. The next thing I've got is I've got the props. I've got a bag of props here, and this can actually just come straight out if you need to make a little more room. But it fits in there really nicely. This is a little tool bag. It's my sort of mini tool bag with just the basic stuff that I need for a day of working, diagonal cutters, hex wrenches, etc. And I've actually got my little mini $100 computer that I use for work in the field. It slides right in there very nicely. And then here I've got my multimeter, and I've got a little case here with some motor nuts, some spare 3mm screws in various lengths, a couple spare antennas for my X4R, and some zip ties. And then at the top, that is where I've got my goggles and my Tyrannus. And you can see that the Tyrannus, I absolutely feel like it's mandatory to have it in the protective glove like this. I've got a separate video that I've either already released or I'm going to release about this transmitter glove. They show you in the product shots a Tyrannus just being set down in here. No way. This is not rigid enough to protect the switches in my opinion. If you've got something like a Turnigy Evolution that has a built-in cover, then it'll just drop right in there. In fact, you'll have a whole lot more space up here at the top. I actually had to move this divider down a little bit from where it was when I first got it to make just that little bit more room for the Tyrannus. I do feel safe putting the goggles in here without additional protection, though. I haven't had that be an issue. The next one of these I'm going to take a look at with you is the Lowepro. This is the BP X2. I'm going to look at the bigger one first. And before I get into it, I want to tell you that I've concluded that you really have to get into the right mindset to appreciate this kind of pack. So let me turn it over and open it up. I actually shot a review of this pack that I'm not going to use, and in that review I took everything out of the ThinkTank FPV Session, and I tried to put it into this pack, and it didn't really go very well. And I said, see, it's got all these clever dividers, but it doesn't make the best use of space. And I realized later that I was thinking about it all wrong. You have to treat this style of pack as the case for all your things. That's why there's all the little doodads and bibbity bobs and straps. This is the case. So don't have your props in a bag that you then try and put in here. Don't have your tools in a bag that you try and then put in here, because it doesn't work very well. Use the divider. So for example, take a look what I've done with this divider here. I've made a little case space here, and all my tools are in there with the handles up. They're just going to hang out there, and I can just reach in and get exactly what I want. They're right there at hand. It's fantastic. You can't do that with the style of backpack like the FPV Session. I've got my props here. I've got my batteries here. The batteries certainly don't have to go into this little mesh pouch, but they can, because here they are, and it goes in there. That's 16 batteries in there, and it could hold more. And then here is where your quadcopters are supposed to go. But the problem is that if your quadcopter has a GoPro Session mount on it, or anything that makes it the least bit tall, they just don't fit here. So my GoPro Session mounts don't just sort of Velcro on, they're actually screwed on or zip tied on, and they're kind of a permanent installation. So I can't put my copters here. And I actually, I've talked to other people who use this pack and this style of pack, and many of them say, the heck with it, I just put my copters on the outside. If you have your props off and you don't have anything extraneous on the copter like a GoPro Session mount, it will fit in here, but I think putting them on the outside is the right way to go. If we then open up here, I can actually just tear this off. This has got the protective thing for the transmitter, and the transmitter just sets down in there. And it's reasonably safe, it feels to me, to set the transmitter in there without any additional protection like the transmitter glove. I've also got my goggles in here, and again, they're in there without any additional protection. Fits in there pretty well. And there's a little bit of space up here that I'm not even using. If we just take a look at the other stuff, here's some miscellaneous, some tape and some parts. Here's my multimeter, and this is a perfect example of embracing this modular sort of mindset, which took me a while to get into. I usually don't think in this way. I needed some place to put this. Where is it going to go? Well, I just took another freaking divider and stuck it in there and made a space for it. Done. There. That's my spot for my multimeter. There you go. Up here on the lid, I've got this tool. I had some other tools and I had some antennas and stuff stuck here. Really trying to embrace the methodology, right? The philosophy. I found that the antennas that I stuck here, they would come off as I moved the pack around. They would come off inside the pack. So I didn't think that was good. But there you go. Now, one thing about the Lowepro packs is that in order to get into the pack, the pack opens from the back side, and that means that while the pack is open from the back side, you can't get at these tools. So this may not actually be the smartest way to do this. It may be better to have them on the inside, but then how are you going to get this? What I would put in these outside pockets is things that you're going to want to get at quickly when you're not wanting to actually get into the back of the pack. In order to show us the ThinkTank Airport Helipack, I went to visit a guy who uses one as his main way of carrying his copters around.
So this is the ThinkTank Helipack Airport something or another. There's a bunch of verbs in there, or nouns in there somewhere. And this, so I put all of my quads outside of the bag, right? The bags are kind of designed to like put quads internally and keep them safe. But you know what? I'm hurtling these through the air at 80 miles an hour, bouncing around the front of a bag is not going to be a problem. So they're there. Up in this section here, I've got a lot of like spare parts that are all just kind of put into plastic bags. So like some heat shrink and some motors and an extra receiver, that sort of thing. Down here, I keep a bunch of zip ties and like a ground station cable just in case I need it. And then because of backpacking, the way to load your bag is to put all the weight in the bottom. And so I've got all of my big heavy batteries down here. I can get about probably 20 packs, 13 and 1500 milliamp 4 cells. I actually have a big 6 cell in here to run my IDST charger off of. In here's a couple extra spare parts and battery straps. There's this is basically just antennas. I feel like I kill them all the time, so I just kind of throw them all in there. I got both right hand, left hand, different kinds of directionals. I strongly believe that you can solve all of your video problems with better antennas than with different VTXs or more power. And then down here we've got, these are again more LiPos for charging other batteries with. I use the 3 cell here.
Yeah, people are going to ask, so pull that out. Which specific battery do you have?
These are Tiger Power batteries.
They're puffed as
they came like Dickens. This actually.
Okay.
I bought these from the 3DR sale when they went out of business for like $10. These are normally like $60, $70 packs, and they came pre-puffed.
Yeah, so well, you can't puff them then, right? It's impossible to puff them. So I'm always thinking about it more from a perspective, I'm going to carry my shit, and then when I get where I'm going, I'm going to kind of take it out.
Yeah.
And I kind of want everything organized into little sort of compartments that I can take out, as opposed to having it all rattling around loose in the bag. But I'm starting to see the advantage of this approach, especially because what we're doing today is we're doing a lot of walking, stop and fly, walk, stop, fly, as opposed to walk, squat, stay for 2 hours. And being able to just reach in and pull one tool out without getting, a bag and then the tool. I start to see the advantage of that.
And so a lot of people swear by the ThinkTank FPV Session, and I like that bag a lot, especially if I'm going to be like traveling by airplane. But with this, when I first saw it, I was like, that's a gimmick. There's no way that anybody would use that.
Yeah,
but
I thought that too.
You look at all of the, because on the side here, and I've made a mess of this because we've been out for a little while now, but on the side I've put all of my tools. I keep my prop wrench, which is, I keep it in my pocket when I'm flying, but prop wrench here, and then different screwdrivers and drivers and USB charging and a receiver, and I've got some different clippy tools over here. And what I try to do is keep everything accessible with only one zipper, right? So I've got this whole top zipper that once I'm in here, all of my stuff is accessible. So I can come in and I pull out my radio, put my goggles on, I fly. And that way you can kind of go from spot to spot without having to worry too much, rather than having to I could see that you use the radio diaper. You have to take out the radio.
The glove. I prefer to call it a glove.
So I don't know. So at first I saw this and I was like, it's kind of stupid. I don't like this, and this is normally not in here.
Right.
And I was doing some specialty prop testing stuff, so it's just a mess. But usually it's just empty, and everything is just accessible. And I like one zipper. It opens from the top. That's one of the reasons I don't like the BP X1. Is because this one you set it down, open it, and you can leave the quads on there.
I like that. That's the same thing I like about the FPV Session, because you could just prop it against the wall and then just halfway open it a little if you want to, and everything comes out.
Yeah, and you can operate like this from the FPV Session.
Right.
You just have to set it up to do that.
Right, but not from the Lowepros.
No.
No.
All right. It's not the BPX series.
No. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
If we take a look now at the BP X1, which is the smaller cousin of the BP X02 that I just showed you, we can see that the smaller size really does present some limitations. So I've got my transmitter and my goggles in here, basically the same. I think that feels to me like the smartest way to do it. But the first limitation that we run into is if I try and take the tools and I put them in the same way, the bag is not deep enough to set the tools down in on their heads like that, which makes, you could put them in sideways, I suppose, but now you're taking up quite a lot of space there that you're probably not going to be using. So you're probably going to have the tools in some kind of a separate tool bag, maybe up, or maybe you could just stick all the tools in the top loose. That might actually be the smartest thing to do. Let's see if that feels, that's actually pretty good, honestly. You just take those and stuff them in there loose. Yes, maybe that's the smartest thing to do. I might still go ahead and stick the clippers here in the door. Some of you might be wondering why I'm not choosing to stick the tools in these handy loops right here. Well, I'd say that's perfectly respectable. Yeah, and they might even stay in place. I'd worry a little bit about the tips of the tools scratching up or tearing the fabric over time. I think that's certainly going to be a concern, especially this mesh here. But that's not bad. That's certainly, if you love this pack, and that might be the smartest way to get your tools in there. And now it's time to do the conclusion of the video, where I give you my final thoughts about which one of these is the best. And the answer is there's actually not one of them that's the best, but I do think there's a couple things that really stand out for me. First of all, looking at the Lowepro, the QuadGuard BP X1 and the BP X2. The BP X2 is $150. The BP X1 is around $120. For a price of $30, you should, I think, just go ahead and buy the BP X2. The BP X2 has just a little bit more space, but it really adds up to a lot more versatility. It doesn't feel that much bigger than the BP X1 on your back, and I have actually gone on this trip to New York. You can see from my lovely hotel room, my tiny, extraordinarily poorly lit hotel room. Yeah, I'm on this trip, and I brought all my gear with me in it to the New York City Drone Film Festival. No problem as a carry-on, goes in an overhead, no big deal. And if I did get forced to gate check it for some reason, because I have two backpacks, I wouldn't be terrified to gate check it as long as everything was on the inside. So between the BP X1 and the BP X2, get the BP X2, spend the extra $30, much better. What about the FPV Session? The FPV Session appealed to me a lot at the beginning because it's a little bit more versatile than the Lowepros. And it's more versatile because it's just kind of a backpack with a few dividers, whereas the Lowepros have that sort of modular dividers idea. And like, for example, I have a hard time figuring out where to put, like if I wanted to bring a laptop into the Lowepros. I'm sure you can figure out a way to make it work, but it's not obvious where it sort of fits into that divider mentality, okay? But here's the thing. The ThinkTank FPV Session is $150, the same price as the Lowepro BP X2, and I gotta tell you, between the two, I think the BP X2 beats it pretty handily. It's got sturdier, it's bigger, it holds more stuff, it's got the fancy dividers if you're into that, and I just think it's much more value for the money than the ThinkTank. And then that brings us to the ThinkTank Airport Helipack. Now, the Airport Helipack comes in around $200, which is significantly more expensive than the other ones in the roundup at around $130 or $150. But I gotta tell you, it has way more space than even the BP X2. It's hard to, I mean, you can watch how much stuff Boba Fett had in there, and he had room to spare. So here's the way I think of it. If you want a pack to put things on your back and to go out and go around flying in urban areas, or to go to carry a couple copters to a flight session, or even to go on a trip on a plane, if you will, then the BP X2 is a great choice. But if you want to go somewhere and just take everything in the kitchen sink, then the extra space of the Airport Helipack is probably going to be worth it. As I was packing for this trip to New York, I had to be really selective about what I brought, you know, and I had to think, oh, how am I going to fit this in here? How am I going to fit that in here? And eventually I got it all done. But if I was going on a longer trip, like if I was going to another country, if I just didn't know what was going to be there, or I was going to be away from my shop for a long time, then the extra space of the Airport Helipack I think would be worth it. Another nice thing about the Airport Helipack is it's got a much broader profile. It's kind of hard to get two copters on the back of the Lowepro. You're supposed to put one copter on the inside, but I don't think there's enough space in there to really do that. Oh, by the way, the Airport Helipack, yeah, you legit can get two copters in there if you choose to use the space that way, even with GoPro session mounts and other stuff on there. Like, you legit can get two copters in there. Maybe three if they're smaller, like 4-inch copters, okay? But the Lowepro, the copters kind of sit on the bottom of the bag, and it's kind of hard to get two of them on there. They're always banging around. But the Airport Helipack has so much surface area. You put one up here and one down there. Yeah, it's really the one if you just need a lot of extra space. And that's going to bring us to the end of this video. I got to tell you, $150, $130, $200 for a bag. If you're out there and you're going, give me a break, that's almost the price of a new copter, I'm so with you. For the longest time, pretty much until I had a YouTube channel and I got sent this stuff for review and didn't have to buy it, for the longest time, I've used that silly tool bag and I just lug that thing around everywhere. It's not a backpack. Well, I don't do a lot of hiking and walking, and if I was going through an airport, I definitely would get... There's other backpacks out there, and I haven't covered them because I haven't tested them, but if you do some searching, you can find some really nice, cheap $30 backpacks that people are using for quadcopters with straps on the outside. Somebody leave a link to one of those down in the comments. I didn't include it in this video. But there's so many options out there right now. But if you are looking for a premium backpack, and I got to tell you, now that I have one, it is really nice. They're really nice. If you feel like you might want to spend $150 on a Lowepro, for example, and you're like, well, is it really that nice? Yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, I don't know if it's $150 nice, but it's pretty nice. Hopefully, if you're that guy, then I've helped you decide which of these is right for you. And if you're not that guy, well, hopefully you enjoyed watching me play with expensive stuff. Okay. All right. That's it. That's going to do it for this video. I got to get to bed because tomorrow I'm going to the New York City Drone Film Festival. And I might even get to meet my hero, Casey Neistat's doing a presentation. I can't wait. Anyway, talk to you guys later. That's not my sign-off. Thanks for watching. Happy flying.